Just as a quick example, let's try make a function that works out the volume of a cylinder based on the length and the radius, um, just to get some practice on how we can create functions. So, like before, I'm going to make a function by opening up a new blank script, and then the first line I'm going to write the function keyword. Then I want to define how my function will work on input and what outputs it will return. So in our case, we want to just work out the volume, V, of a cylinder. So I'm just going to have one output, and that's going to be the volume. Next, I need to define the name of my function. So maybe I want to call it, let's call it volume, or cylinder volume. Cylinder vol represents the cylinder volume. Let's get rid of the underscore. Cylinder volume, like that. And then the volume of my cylinder is going to depend on two inputs. The one will be the radius of my cylinder, and the other will be the length. So in this case, I want to create a function called cylinder volume. It will operate on two inputs, R and L, representing the radius and the length respectively. And then what it will do is it will work out the volume based on the radius and the length, and that is what I will return here. So you'll notice that I do not need to put in square brackets when there is only one input. When there's only one input, I don't need to return a vector or a matrix containing one element. I mean, that's a bit redundant. So all I do is I just put in the variable. If I had more than one output, then yes, I would have to put square brackets. If I had, say, V1 and like area, so let's say I wanted to return the volume and the area, then I would have to include square brackets. But in our case, I'm just returning the volume, so I will just write it like this without having to put square brackets. Next thing I want to do is I want to define, so maybe let me write end just to be complete. What I want to define is how I will work out V based on R and L. So I know that the first thing I want to do is work out the cross-sectional area of my cylinder, and I can use the radius of my cylinder to do that. So let me write area is equal to pi times r squared. Pi r squared is the area of a cylinder, and then from that I can work out the volume. So the volume is equal to area times length. And so what I've done is I've created almost a temporary variable to represent the area, and then that area is used in the final volume calculation that I return in my function. So even though this is like a very simple function, it's only 6 lines long. It's actually only 2 lines long, right? The idea is that we can create any other set of code within this function to calculate intermediate values that all depend on the final value that we return to volume. So in this case, it's only 2 lines long. Again, you could have many lines of code with other functions and for loops and so on. That becomes quite complicated. But the idea is that all of those lines of code are just processing a common piece of code that eventually returns the value that you want in V. So now I'm going to save this file. So let me go save as. You'll notice that I'm going to save this function with the same file name, .mfile, as the name of the function. So cylinder volume. And now I click save, and now I've created the function cylinder volume that I can use in my calculation. So let me just, for quick demonstration, I'm just going to type in, I'm just going to call my function cylinder volume with certain inputs. So say I wanted a radius of 1.5 and a length of 3, then I'm going to call my cylinder volume function with 1.5, the value of 1.5 for R, and the value of 3 for length. So when I call my function, I press the enter key. That is the answer of my volume. And you can see how convenient this is, because say now I'm given a whole bunch of radiuses. I've been given a whole bunch of different combinations of radiuses, or is it radii, and length. So maybe I want 5 and 0.1. Oops, cylinder volume. 5 and 0.1. That is the volume of my cylinder when my radius is 5 and my length is 1. What's bigger, a cylinder with a radius of 5 and a length of 1, or a very tall, skinny cylinder? So let's say 2 and 10. Okay, looks like a very tall, skinny cylinder with a length of 10 has a much bigger volume than this fat, short cylinder. So the cylinder volume function now is a convenient way to work out the volume of a cylinder just based on 2 inputs. And I can repurpose this function in other code. I can use it, I could use it in a separate script, or I could even store it on my computer somewhere and use it for a whole bunch of programs later on. So again, this idea of functions is that we can repackage common calculations or common code into a function and then call it with inputs, so that we don't have to keep typing out area equals pi times r squared, volume equals area times L, and that saves us a lot of time. And it also cleans up your code. It makes everything look a lot easier to read.